One of the most crucial elements in dealing with narcissists and toxic individuals is learning to remain emotionally unaffected by their manipulative tactics. Narcissists thrive on creating chaos, confusion, and drama. They aim to elicit emotional reactions from others to gain control over them. When they can provoke anger, guilt, sadness, or frustration, they have successfully manipulated the situation to serve their own needs. Therefore, the key to outsmarting a narcissist is to learn how to stay emotionally detached, not allowing them to trigger your emotional responses. This skill is essential because the less emotionally invested you are, the less power they have over you. Narcissists often have a particular way of engaging with others, whether it's through aggressive behavior, passive-aggressive tactics, or calculated manipulation. They thrive on attention and validation, constantly seeking admiration and reinforcing their fragile sense of self-worth. Their behavior, while often charming at first, is ultimately selfish and self-centered. They need others to confirm their importance and superiority, and they do this by invoking specific emotional responses in their targets. This could include guilt-tripping someone into doing something for them or attacking them with harsh criticisms in a way that causes them to doubt themselves. The key to breaking this cycle of manipulation is understanding that these emotional reactions are exactly what the narcissist wants. The first step in becoming emotionally detached is recognizing the narcissist's pattern of behavior. Once you begin to understand how they operate, it becomes easier to anticipate their attempts to manipulate or provoke you. Narcissists often use tactics like gaslighting, where they distort the truth and make you question your reality. Or they might shift the blame onto you for things they themselves are responsible for. By recognizing these tactics early, you can prepare yourself to respond in a way that doesn't play into their hands. You can tell yourself that this is just another manipulation attempt and that you don't have to engage with it emotionally. With time, you can begin to see their behavior for what it truly is, an attempt to control and manipulate you, and you can take a step back instead of reacting immediately. Another crucial aspect of emotional detachment is understanding that you don't need to justify your decisions or feelings to a narcissist. Narcissists often thrive on creating confusion, and one of the ways they do this is by making you feel like you need to explain yourself or apologize for having boundaries. They may challenge your sense of self or twist situations to make you feel like you're wrong. This is a form of psychological manipulation. Once you recognize that your worth doesn't depend on their validation, you'll be less likely to engage with their attempts to make you feel guilty or uncertain. In these interactions, simply asserting your boundaries calmly and confidently without the need for excessive explanation is a powerful form of detachment. Emotional detachment also requires learning to distance yourself from the narcissist's need for attention. Narcissists require constant admiration and validation, and they can easily become frustrated or hostile if they feel like they're being ignored or not receiving the attention they crave. They will often escalate their behavior to draw attention back to themselves, whether it's through dramatic outbursts, playing the victim, or belittling others to elevate themselves. In these moments, the best thing you can do is not engage. When you refuse to give in to their need for attention, you take away the power they hold over you. Emotional detachment means choosing not to fuel their behavior by giving them the emotional reaction they are seeking. The more you practice ignoring their attempts to create chaos or control your emotions, the less power they will have over you. It's also important to focus on taking care of your own emotional needs. Narcissists often try to make the relationship about themselves, expecting others to meet their needs while disregarding the emotional needs of those around them. When you are emotionally detached, you begin to recognize that it is your responsibility to take care of yourself and prioritize your well-being rather than sacrificing it for someone else. Practicing self-care, whether it's through hobbies, exercise, or spending time with supportive people, allows you to strengthen your emotional resilience. The more you focus on maintaining your own emotional health, the easier it becomes to remain unaffected by the narcissist's attempts to manipulate or control you. Another aspect of emotional detachment involves shifting your perspective on the narcissist's behavior. Often, people who are emotionally entangled with a narcissist become fixated on trying to change them or seeking their approval. The truth, however, is that narcissists rarely change. Their sense of entitlement, inflated ego, and lack of empathy are deeply ingrained. No amount of explanation, argument, or effort on your part will lead to a meaningful change in their behavior. Once you accept this reality, you can stop wasting your energy trying to alter the narcissist or seeking validation from them. Emotional detachment helps you release the desire to change the narcissist and instead focuses on your own growth and emotional well-being. Remaining emotionally detached doesn't mean you have to cut the narcissist out of your life entirely. In some cases, you may need to maintain contact with them, whether due to family dynamics, work relationships, or other circumstances. However, detaching emotionally allows you to engage with them without becoming emotionally entangled. When you engage with a narcissist from a place of detachment, you are better able to protect your emotional health and avoid being pulled into their drama or manipulation. You can interact with them while maintaining your boundaries and without allowing their behavior to disrupt your inner peace. In addition to all these strategies, emotional detachment requires patience and practice. It's not something that happens overnight, especially if you have been emotionally invested in a narcissistic relationship for a long time. The process of detaching emotionally requires mindfulness and self-awareness, along with the willingness to let go of the need for validation or approval from the narcissist. Over time, as you become more skilled at detaching emotionally, you will find that their behavior has less of an impact on you, and you will be able to move through interactions with greater ease and confidence. Ultimately, emotional detachment is a powerful tool for protecting yourself from the toxic influence of a narcissist. It allows you to maintain control over your emotions and break free from their manipulative tactics. By recognizing the narcissist's behavior, refusing to react emotionally, and focusing on your own well-being, you can navigate these relationships with greater resilience and strength. The concept of detaching emotionally from a narcissist is one of the most critical and powerful strategies for protecting yourself from their manipulative behavior. Narcissists thrive on emotional reactions. They are adept at manipulating and controlling others by playing on their emotions. They often employ tactics such as guilt tripping, gaslighting, or emotional blackmail to provoke strong feelings in their victims, which in turn creates a dynamic of control and dependency. By learning to detach emotionally, you break the cycle of manipulation and regain control over your emotions, ultimately preventing the narcissist from having the power to dictate your emotional state. Emotional detachment allows you to maintain your composure, avoid reacting impulsively, and protect your mental and emotional well-being. The first step toward emotional detachment is recognizing that the narcissist's behavior is not a reflection of you, but of them. Narcissists project their own insecurities, fears, and frustrations onto others. Their actions and words are often aimed at undermining your confidence, creating doubt, or evoking an emotional response that reinforces their sense of superiority. By internalizing their criticisms or manipulation, you allow them to control your emotional state. However, once you understand that their behavior is rooted in their own issues and not a reflection of your worth, you begin to separate yourself from the emotional impact of their actions. This recognition is liberating because it enables you to stop taking their behavior personally, which is often a trap that victims of narcissists fall into. Next, it's important to develop an understanding that the narcissist's emotional outbursts or manipulative behavior are designed to provoke a reaction from you. Narcissists feed off of emotional reactions because it gives them power. Whether it's through anger, sadness, guilt, or frustration, they seek to elicit these responses because it allows them to feel in control. By not reacting to their provocations, you deny them the emotional fuel they need to continue manipulating you. This emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring or become cold and indifferent. Rather, it means that you consciously choose not to let their behavior control your emotional state. You recognize that their outbursts are not about you, and therefore, you don't allow them to affect you in the way they desire. Another key aspect of emotional detachment is setting clear emotional boundaries. Narcissists often overstep boundaries, both emotional and psychological, by demanding too much of your time, attention, or energy. They may try to drag you into their drama or use your empathy against you to manipulate you into doing things you don't want to do. In order to emotionally detach, you must establish firm boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. This means recognizing when the narcissist is attempting to pull you into their emotional turmoil and making the conscious decision to step back. For example, if they try to initiate an argument that is designed to provoke guilt or frustration, you can choose not to engage. You might calmly state that you're not going to participate in the conversation until it's productive, and then walk away. Establishing these boundaries may be difficult at first, especially if you've been emotionally enmeshed with the narcissist for a long time. However, once you begin to practice detachment, you'll find it becomes easier to resist their attempts to manipulate your emotions. Detaching emotionally also means learning to manage your expectations. Narcissists rarely behave in ways that are predictable or consistent, and they often disappoint those around them because they are driven primarily by their own needs and desires. They will say and do whatever serves their agenda, which often results in a lack of empathy, broken promises, or inconsiderate behavior. By learning to manage your expectations, you stop investing emotionally in the idea that the narcissist will ever change or behave in a way that aligns with your values. You accept that they are unlikely to offer the validation, support, or respect that you might want or need from them. This mindset shift allows you to emotionally detach from the need for their approval or validation, making it easier to navigate interactions without feeling hurt or disappointed. One of the most important aspects of emotional detachment is learning to regain control over your reactions. Narcissists are skilled at triggering emotional responses, whether it's through insults, lies, or manipulation. By learning how to detach emotionally, you can stop reacting impulsively to their provocations. This might involve pausing before responding to their behavior, taking a deep breath, and evaluating whether reacting is worth your time and energy. Emotional detachment gives you the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react in anger or frustration. For example, if the narcissist tries to belittle you or provoke a reaction, instead of getting upset or defending yourself, you might simply choose to remain silent or calmly state that their behavior doesn't affect you. By doing so, you take back control over your emotional state and stop them from controlling the interaction. It's also essential to prioritize self-care when emotionally detaching from a narcissist. Narcissistic relationships can be emotionally draining, and if you don't take the time to nurture your own emotional needs, you may find yourself feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, or even numb. Practicing emotional detachment requires you to fill your life with positive, supportive relationships and activities that help you recharge. Whether it's spending time with friends who respect your boundaries, engaging in hobbies that bring you joy, or seeking professional support through therapy, self-care is essential to maintaining your emotional health. The more you invest in yourself and your well-being, the less power the narcissist's behavior will have over you. Emotional detachment also involves recognizing when it's time to walk away. If a narcissist's behavior becomes too toxic or abusive, emotional detachment can provide the strength you need to create distance and protect yourself. Detaching emotionally doesn't mean you have to tolerate abuse or manipulation. Instead, it means you are emotionally strong enough to recognize when the relationship is no longer serving you and take the necessary steps to remove yourself from it. This might involve setting boundaries that lead to less contact, or in extreme cases, cutting ties completely. Detaching emotionally allows you to make these decisions with clarity, free from the emotional chaos the narcissist might create. Emotional detachment is not a quick fix, and it takes practice. However, it is an empowering process that gives you the ability to reclaim your emotional freedom. By recognizing the narcissist's tactics, setting clear emotional boundaries, managing your expectations, and prioritizing self-care, you can effectively detach from their emotional manipulation. Over time, this detachment will help you maintain your sense of self and protect your emotional health from their toxic influence. Setting boundaries is a fundamental aspect of protecting yourself from narcissistic manipulation. Narcissists by nature do not respect the boundaries of others. They see others as tools to be used for their own benefit, and their sense of entitlement leads them to disregard any limitations that you try to establish. They will often push, test, and violate boundaries in an attempt to maintain control over you. Therefore, establishing strong and clear boundaries is the most effective way to safeguard your mental and emotional well-being while also asserting your autonomy in the relationship. The first step in setting boundaries with a narcissist is understanding that you have the right to establish them. Many people, especially those who have been manipulated for a long time, begin to doubt their own worth or feel guilty about asserting their needs. Narcissists are experts at making you feel like you should prioritize their needs over your own. They may frame your boundaries as selfishness or accuse you of being unreasonable or demanding. However, it's crucial to recognize that setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness. It is a necessary step toward preserving your dignity, self-respect, and mental health. You are allowed to take care of yourself, to say no, and to protect your energy from being drained by toxic individuals. Once you accept the right to set boundaries, the next step is to identify what your personal boundaries are. Narcissists often blur the lines between acceptable behavior and manipulation, so it's important to clearly define what you will and will not tolerate. These boundaries can be physical, emotional, or psychological. For instance, you might establish physical boundaries by limiting the amount of time you spend with the narcissist or setting limits on how much personal space you need. Emotional boundaries can involve refusing to engage in arguments that are meant to provoke or guilt trip you. Psychological boundaries can include refusing to internalize their criticism or manipulative tactics. Recognizing these boundaries beforehand ensures that when the narcissist inevitably tests them, you will know exactly where you stand and what you are willing to tolerate. The next challenge is to communicate these boundaries clearly and confidently. Narcissists will often try to downplay, dismiss, or ignore your boundaries in an attempt to manipulate you. They may try to guilt trip you, make you feel like you're being unreasonable, or offer rewards to convince you to let your guard down. It's essential to be firm when communicating your boundaries and to avoid apologizing for having them. A narcissist may try to use emotional tactics to make you doubt your decisions, but by staying calm and assertive, you make it clear that your boundaries are non-negotiable. For example, if they attempt to violate your emotional boundaries by making cruel or hurtful comments, you can calmly state, "I will not engage in conversations where I am being disrespected," and then remove yourself from the situation. You do not owe them an explanation, and it's important to avoid getting drawn into their attempts to manipulate you. Narcissists are often persistent in their efforts to push past your boundaries, so consistency is key. If you give in to their demands or allow them to break your boundaries even once, they will see it as a weakness and will continue to test you. It's important to stick to your boundaries, no matter how much resistance you face. If you allow them to violate your boundaries once, it will only encourage further manipulation. For instance, if you have made it clear that you will not tolerate their belittling remarks, but they continue to insult you, it's crucial to maintain your stance. Every time you give in, it reinforces the idea that your boundaries are flexible and that they can push you into submission. At times, narcissists will escalate their behavior when they feel that their control is slipping. They may resort to emotional blackmail, threats, or intimidation to break your boundaries. It's essential to recognize this behavior for what it is, an attempt to regain power over you. If they begin to threaten or manipulate you in any way, it's important to stay calm, repeat your boundaries, and remove yourself from the situation if necessary. These extreme tactics are often a sign of their desperation to maintain control, and by staying firm and consistent, you demonstrate that their efforts to break your boundaries will not succeed. It's also important to acknowledge that in some cases, the narcissist may never respect your boundaries. If you find that your boundaries are consistently violated despite your best efforts to communicate and enforce them, it may be a sign that the relationship is toxic and unhealthy. Narcissists do not change easily, and their sense of entitlement will often prevent them from ever truly respecting your limits. In such cases, it may be necessary to distance yourself from the relationship entirely. Sometimes setting a boundary means deciding that enough is enough and taking the necessary steps to protect yourself, even if that means cutting ties with the narcissist. Furthermore, setting boundaries requires emotional strength and self-care. Narcissists can drain your energy, and if you don't take time to replenish yourself, you may find it difficult to enforce your boundaries effectively. Prioritizing your own well-being and making time for self-care is crucial to maintaining the energy needed to assert your limits. This could mean spending time with supportive people who respect your boundaries, engaging in activities that recharge you, or seeking professional help to navigate the emotional toll of dealing with a narcissist. When you take care of yourself, you are in a better position to maintain your boundaries and protect your emotional health. In some situations, it may be necessary to gradually enforce boundaries if the narcissist is particularly manipulative or abusive. This gradual approach allows you to slowly reclaim your power without triggering an all-out confrontation. However, Even in these instances, consistency is vital. Small steps toward enforcing your boundaries will add up over time, and while the narcissist may resist initially, they will eventually learn that their manipulative tactics no longer work on you. Setting boundaries with a narcissist is not easy, but it is one of the most important steps in taking back control of your life. By understanding that your boundaries are a reflection of your self-worth, communicating them clearly and maintaining consistency, you can effectively protect yourself from the narcissist's manipulative behavior. While it may take time and effort, the benefits of setting and maintaining strong boundaries are invaluable. Asking the right question at the right time is an incredibly effective strategy for dealing with narcissists and toxic individuals. Narcissists thrive on control, manipulation, and distortion of reality. They are skilled at creating environments where their narrative reigns supreme, making it difficult for others to challenge their dominance. They may use gaslighting, guilt-tripping, or charm to manipulate those around them into accepting their distorted version of events. However, there is one powerful tool you can use to regain control: asking a question that shifts the balance of power in your favor. This question does not need to be complex or confrontational, but it must be asked at the precise moment when it exposes the narcissist's lies or forces them to confront their own contradictions. When you are dealing with a narcissist, they will often present themselves as infallible, as if they know best and have the right to dictate the terms of every interaction. This inflated sense of self-importance can lead to situations where they dominate conversations, make decisions unilaterally, or dismiss the feelings and needs of others. Narcissists are adept at making others feel small and insignificant, often by belittling their opinions or invalidating their experiences. By asking a carefully chosen question, you can disrupt this false narrative and force the narcissist to confront the reality of their behavior. The key to asking the right question is to target the narcissist's inconsistencies and contradictions. Narcissists, due to their inflated ego and constant need for validation, often make claims that cannot withstand scrutiny. They may assert things that are blatantly false or hold opinions that contradict their previous statements. For example, they might praise themselves for their generosity, but in the same breath refuse to acknowledge the contributions or sacrifices of others. In such situations, asking a question that highlights this inconsistency can have a profound effect. A question like, "But didn't you say just yesterday that you didn't have time for that?" forces the narcissist to face the contradiction in their behavior. This question doesn't accuse them outright. Instead, it simply asks for clarification, which puts them on the defensive. Another powerful tactic is to ask a question that challenges their sense of control. Narcissists thrive on dominance and will do everything in their power to maintain the upper hand. They may try to manipulate or control situations by framing them in a way that makes them the hero or the victim, depending on what suits their narrative at the moment. By asking a question that places the burden of responsibility on them, you subtly shift the focus away from their manipulation. For example, asking, "What would you do if you were in my position?" challenges them to see the situation from your perspective and forces them to take responsibility for the dynamics they've created. This question can disarm them by making them consider the consequences of their actions and question their sense of entitlement. In addition to highlighting contradictions and challenging control, the right question can also serve to reveal the narcissist's underlying insecurities. Despite their bravado, narcissists are deeply insecure individuals who rely on external validation to prop up their fragile sense of self-worth. They fear being exposed as inadequate or flawed, so they often go to great lengths to hide their vulnerabilities. By asking a question that forces them to reflect on their true motivations, you can expose these insecurities. For example, asking, "What's really driving you to behave this way?" subtly invites them to confront the underlying issues that motivate their manipulative behavior. This kind of question encourages introspection and can lead to discomfort for the narcissist, who is not accustomed to having their vulnerabilities laid bare. Moreover, a well-timed question can also shift the power dynamic by making the narcissist consider the broader context of their action. Narcissists often operate within their own self-contained world where their desires and needs take precedence over everything else. They rarely consider the impact of their behavior on others unless it serves their own agenda. By asking a question that shifts the focus to the bigger picture, you force the narcissist to acknowledge the consequences of their actions. For example, How do you think your actions are affecting the people around you? Challenges them to step outside their ego-driven mindset and consider the perspectives of others. This can create a moment of vulnerability, as the narcissist may struggle to see beyond their own needs and desires. When asking these questions, it's essential to remain calm, composed, and non-confrontational. Narcissists are masters of deflection and will often respond to direct challenges with anger, denial, or a shift in blame. The key is to ask the question in such a way that it invites reflection rather than triggering a defensive reaction. Keep your tone neutral and your demeanor relaxed. The goal is not to engage in a battle, but to expose the cracks in their facade without escalating the situation. It's also important to recognize that narcissists are unlikely to offer honest or reflective answers to your question. Instead, they may deflect, manipulate, or outright deny their behavior. However, the purpose of asking the right question is not necessarily to get them to admit their flaws or change their behavior. Rather, it is to regain your sense of control and remove the narcissist's power over you. By asking these questions, you assert your autonomy and disrupt the flow of their manipulative tactics. Even if the narcissist doesn't provide a satisfactory answer, the act of posing the question can be empowering for you, as it allows you to take back the narrative and challenge their influence. In some cases, the question may not lead to an immediate resolution or change in behavior, but over time, narcissists are so used to operating without scrutiny that being asked a question that challenges their version of reality may cause them to rethink their actions, even if only momentarily. This moment of doubt can create space for you to regain control of the situation and protect yourself from further manipulation. In conclusion, asking the right question at the right time can be a powerful way to outsmart a narcissist. It shifts the power dynamic, exposes contradictions, and forces the narcissist to confront their own insecurities. While narcissists are unlikely to change overnight, using questions as a tool of self-empowerment can help you regain control, protect your boundaries, and ultimately disarm their manipulative tactics. The simplicity and effectiveness of this approach lie in its ability to create discomfort for the narcissist, making it harder for them to continue their manipulation without scrutiny. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful tools you can use when navigating a relationship with a narcissist. It is the key to maintaining your own sense of identity and protecting your mental well-being in the face of constant manipulation. A narcissist's tactics can be so subtle and pervasive that without a solid understanding of who you are, it's easy to lose yourself in their web of deceit. Narcissists prey on vulnerabilities, exploiting your emotional triggers and using your insecurities to gain control over you. This is why self-awareness isn't just important, it's essential if you want to safeguard yourself from their influence and regain a sense of agency. The first step in developing self-awareness is understanding your values and beliefs. Narcissists often attempt to erode these values, making you question your convictions. They may belittle your principles, dismiss your worldview, or manipulate situations to make you doubt your integrity. Without a strong sense of self, it's easy to become susceptible to their influence. When you are clear about what you stand for, you can remain grounded in your truth, regardless of the narcissist's attempts to shift your perspective. A well-established sense of values acts as an anchor, keeping you from drifting into their distorted reality. Equally important is being aware of your emotional triggers. Narcissists are highly skilled at exploiting emotions, often pushing you to the brink of frustration, guilt, or self-doubt. They have an uncanny ability to identify your weakest points, whether it's a fear of abandonment, a need for validation, or a past trauma, and use them against you. By becoming attuned to what sets off these emotional responses, you can better manage your reactions and avoid falling into the narcissist trap. Emotional self-awareness means understanding that your feelings are valid, but also recognizing when they are being manipulated. With this awareness, you can resist the emotional pull the narcissist tries to create, making it easier to maintain your composure and sense of control, in addition to recognizing your triggers. Self-awareness involves taking responsibility for your own actions and reactions. Narcissists often try to shift blame and make you feel responsible for their behavior. This can lead to confusion and self-blame, especially when they distort the narrative and make you feel like you are the one at fault. It's crucial to recognize that while you may have made mistakes, their behavior is not your responsibility. When you acknowledge your own role in a situation without allowing yourself to be manipulated, you take back control of the narrative. This doesn't mean ignoring your faults or refusing to learn from mistakes. Instead, it means understanding that the narcissist's actions are theirs alone, and you are not to blame for their toxic behavior. Another critical component of self-awareness is recognizing your boundaries. Narcissists are notorious for overstepping boundaries, often without any regard for your comfort or needs. Whether it's invading your personal space, ignoring your limits, or demanding more of your time and energy than you can give, narcissists will push the envelope to assert control. Without self-awareness, it's easy to let these violations slide or rationalize their behavior, thinking you should accommodate their needs. However, when you have a clear understanding of your own limits, it becomes easier to set firm boundaries and communicate them effectively. You must learn to say no when necessary and stand firm in your decisions no matter how much the narcissist tries to push back. Self-awareness allows you to distinguish between what is acceptable and what is harmful, empowering you to take action when necessary. Being self-aware also means knowing when to detach emotionally. Narcissists thrive on emotional responses, and they often escalate conflicts or manipulate situations to provoke a reaction from you. This is where emotional detachment becomes an invaluable tool. By cultivating the ability to remain calm and unaffected by their provocations, you regain control over the situation. Emotional detachment doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. Rather, it means not allowing the narcissist to dictate your emotional state. When you are self-aware, you can observe their behavior without getting caught up in the emotional chaos they create. This allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, which is exactly what the narcissist is trying to provoke. Equally important is developing a strong sense of self-worth. Narcissists often seek to undermine your confidence, making you feel inadequate or unworthy. They will criticize you, belittle your accomplishments, or invalidate your feelings in an attempt to weaken your sense of self. Without a solid understanding of your own value, it's easy to internalize their negativity and start doubting your worth. However, when you are self-aware and confident in who you are, the narcissist's attempts to diminish you become less effective. You begin to recognize that their behavior reflects their own insecurities rather than any truth about you. Finally, self-awareness enables you to make empowered decisions. Narcissists are often persuasive and convincing, and they will try to manipulate you into making choices that benefit them. By staying in touch with your own needs and desires, you can more clearly see when a decision is being influenced by the narcissist's agenda. When you know what you want and what you stand for, you can make choices that align with your true desires rather than being swayed by their pressure or manipulation. This not only helps you regain control over your life, but also reinforces your sense of autonomy. In conclusion, self-awareness is not merely a tool, it is a shield. It allows you to see through the narcissist's tactics, maintain your sense of self, and respond to their behavior with clarity and confidence. Without it, you risk being swept up in their manipulative games, but with it, you gain the power to stand firm in your truth and outsmart them at every turn. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful tools you can use when navigating a relationship with a narcissist. It is the key to maintaining your own sense of identity and protecting your mental well-being in the face of constant manipulation. A narcissist's tactics can be so subtle and pervasive that without a solid understanding of who you are, it's easy to lose yourself in their web of deceit. Narcissists prey on vulnerabilities, exploiting your emotional triggers and using your insecurities to gain control over you. This is why self-awareness isn't just important, it's essential if you want to safeguard yourself from their influence and regain a sense of agency. The first step in developing self-awareness is understanding your values and beliefs. Narcissists often attempt to erode these values, making you question your convictions. They may belittle your principles, dismiss your worldview, or manipulate situations to make you doubt your integrity. Without a strong sense of self, it's easy to become susceptible to their influence. When you are clear about what you stand for, you can remain grounded in your truth, regardless of the narcissist's attempts to shift your perspective. A well-established sense of values acts as an anchor, keeping you from drifting into their distorted reality. Equally important is being aware of your emotional triggers. Narcissists are highly skilled at exploiting emotions, often pushing you to the brink of frustration, guilt, or self-doubt. They have an uncanny ability to identify your weakest points, whether it's a fear of abandonment, a need for validation, or a past trauma, and use them against you. By becoming attuned to what sets off these emotional responses, you can better manage your reactions and avoid falling into the narcissist trap. Emotional self-awareness means understanding that your feelings are valid, but also recognizing when they are being manipulated. With this awareness, you can resist the emotional pull the narcissist tries to create, making it easier to maintain your composure and sense of control, in addition to recognizing your triggers. Self-awareness involves taking responsibility for your own actions and reactions. Narcissists often try to shift blame and make you feel responsible for their behavior. This can lead to confusion and self-blame, especially when they distort the narrative and make you feel like you are the one at fault. It's crucial to recognize that while you may have made mistakes, their behavior is not your responsibility. When you acknowledge your own role in a situation without allowing yourself to be manipulated, you take back control of the narrative. This doesn't mean ignoring your faults or refusing to learn from mistakes. Instead, it means understanding that the narcissist's actions are theirs alone, and you are not to blame for their toxic behavior. Another critical component of self-awareness is recognizing your boundaries. Narcissists are notorious for overstepping boundaries, often without any regard for your comfort or needs. Whether it's invading your personal space, ignoring your limits, or demanding more of your time and energy than you can give, narcissists will push the envelope to assert control. Without self-awareness, it's easy to let these violations slide or rationalize their behavior, thinking you should accommodate their needs. However, when you have a clear understanding of your own limits, it becomes easier to set firm boundaries and communicate them effectively. You must learn to say no when necessary and stand firm in your decisions no matter how much the narcissist tries to push back. Self-awareness allows you to distinguish between what is acceptable and what is harmful, empowering you to take action when necessary. Being self-aware also means knowing when to detach emotionally. Narcissists thrive on emotional responses, and they often escalate conflicts or manipulate situations to provoke a reaction from you. This is where emotional detachment becomes an invaluable tool. By cultivating the ability to remain calm and unaffected by their provocations, you regain control over the situation. Emotional detachment doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. Rather, it means not allowing the narcissist to dictate your emotional state. When you are self-aware, you can observe their behavior without getting caught up in the emotional chaos they create. This allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, which is exactly what the narcissist is trying to provoke. Equally important is developing a strong sense of self-worth. Narcissists often seek to undermine your confidence, making you feel inadequate or unworthy. They will criticize you, belittle your accomplishments, or invalidate your feelings in an attempt to weaken your sense of self. Without a solid understanding of your own value, it's easy to internalize their negativity and start doubting your worth. However, when you are self-aware and confident in who you are, the narcissist's attempts to diminish you become less effective. You begin to recognize that their behavior reflects their own insecurities rather than any truth about you. Finally, self-awareness enables you to make empowered decisions. Narcissists are often persuasive and convincing, and they will try to manipulate you into making choices that benefit them. By staying in touch with your own needs and desires, you can more clearly see when a decision is being influenced by the narcissist's agenda. When you know what you want and what you stand for, you can make choices that align with your true desires rather than being swayed by their pressure or manipulation. This not only helps you regain control over your life, but also reinforces your sense of autonomy. In conclusion, self-awareness is not merely a tool, it is a shield. It allows you to see through the narcissist's tactics, maintain your sense of self, and respond to their behavior with clarity and confidence. Without it, you risk being swept up in their manipulative games, but with it, you gain the power to stand firm in your truth and outsmart them at every turn. Have you ever found yourself caught in the web of manipulation? Stuck, perhaps, in the presence of someone who seems to always have the upper hand, who distorts reality, who uses their charm, their deceit, their cruelty to control the world around them? A narcissist, or worse, an evil mind. We've all met them, and we've all felt the weight of their influence, haven't we? Recognizing the tactics of a narcissist is the first and most crucial step in understanding how to outsmart them. Narcissists are individuals who possess a deep need for admiration and validation, often at the expense of others. They thrive on controlling and manipulating the people around them to secure their own sense of superiority. These individuals are often highly skilled at presenting a facade of charm and confidence, which makes them difficult to spot at first. However, once you become familiar with their patterns and behaviors, recognizing their tactics becomes more apparent. The key is to stay vigilant and observe their interactions carefully. One of the primary tactics of a narcissist is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where the narcissist attempts to make you doubt your perception of reality. They will often distort facts, deny things they've said or done, or create confusion by twisting the truth. The goal is to make you question your own sanity, memory, and understanding of events. Over time, this can erode your confidence and make you feel powerless, which in turn gives the narcissist more control. They are masters at making you feel like you're always in the wrong, no matter what the situation. Recognizing gaslighting is crucial because once you see it for what it is, you can start to protect yourself from its effects. Another common tactic is emotional manipulation. Narcissists often exploit your emotions to get what they want. They may play the victim to evoke sympathy or guilt, trip you into doing something for them. Alternatively, they may use praise and flattery to manipulate you into giving them something they desire. This tactic is especially dangerous because it can create a false sense of connection or loyalty, making you feel obligated to cater to their needs. In these situations, they often have a knack for knowing exactly how to push your emotional buttons, leaving you feeling guilty, insecure, or compelled to please them. Once you are caught in this emotional web, it can be difficult to break free, especially if the narcissist has been effective at building trust or affection over time. A narcissist's need for control is another key tactic to be aware of. Narcissists will go to great lengths to assert dominance in any situation. They may try to belittle you, dismiss your opinions, or take credit for your achievements. They often believe they are entitled to special treatment, and they expect others to defer to their needs and desires. This sense of entitlement leads them to disregard the boundaries of others, as they feel they deserve to take whatever they want. In a professional setting, this can manifest as a narcissist taking credit for your hard work or undermining your accomplishments to make themselves appear more competent. In personal relationships, they may try to isolate you from friends and family to maintain control over your life. Recognizing this desire for control is essential because it allows you to defend your autonomy and set healthy boundaries. Narcissists also thrive on creating chaos and drama. They often engage in conflict for the sake of maintaining their sense of importance, whether it's through stirring up gossip, fostering misunderstandings, or creating unnecessary tension. They use conflict as a means to feel more powerful. They feed off of the emotional responses they provoke in others, and they take pleasure in seeing people struggle or suffer. This creates a toxic atmosphere where you are constantly on edge, never quite knowing when the next conflict will arise. Recognizing this behavior is important because once you realize that the narcissist thrives on chaos, you can begin to distance yourself from the drama they create. In addition to these tactics, narcissists also have a tendency to project their flaws onto others. Instead of taking responsibility for their own mistakes or shortcomings, they will accuse others of doing the very things they are guilty of. This projection is another manipulation tactic used to deflect attention away from their own behavior and place blame on someone else. For example, if a narcissist is caught lying, they might accuse you of being dishonest or untrustworthy. If they've hurt you emotionally, they may turn the situation around and make it seem like you're the one causing the harm. This projection serves to protect their fragile ego and maintain their sense of superiority. Recognizing this tactic helps you stay grounded in your own truth as you become aware that the narcissist is merely deflecting attention from their own flaws. Lastly, narcissists can be incredibly charming and charismatic, especially in the early stages of a relationship. They may shower you with compliments, gifts, or attention to win your affection and trust. This charm is often a tactic to create dependency and admiration. They are skilled at reading people and knowing exactly what to say or do to get what they want. This can make it difficult to recognize their true nature, especially if they appear to be genuinely kind or considerate. It's important to remain cautious and not be swept away by their initial charm. Over time, the mask will begin to slip, and you will see the true nature of the narcissist. However, by then the damage may have already been done. By understanding these tactics, you can begin to protect yourself from the narcissist's manipulation. Awareness is the first step in breaking free from their influence, and it provides you with the clarity to see through their deception. It allows you to act with confidence and set boundaries, knowing that the narcissist's behavior is not a reflection of your worth, but a projection of their own insecurities and needs.